Hello and welcome to Pocket Full of Chaos. This is our official rebranding video. We started this channel a few years back as Harley and the Twins. People had told us that we should have our own reality show, and so I was like, okay, well, if we were on YouTube, what would you want to see? And people were like, oh, we want to see what it's like to have three sets of twins. We didn't really know how to show that because when you're filming your family, you're not really acting yourself, you're acting. Okay. So that didn't really pan out. Yeah, we did some fun things together, but we were like actively trying to go and do fun things. We're a little bit out of the ordinary for us just to put it up here. Like it was just a whole thing, okay? A whole thing that didn't go the way that I was anticipating. But the last thing that I posted, I was preparing to share our school schedules. Like I did the filming and everything, and just didn't have the time to go through and edit and put it together and post. So, oh well, at this point, we are in the new school year. Starting next week, and everything is changing. We had some big things happen this past year. We did move again. Yeah, we do that a lot. But we are in my husband's final year of seminary school. He will be graduating with his bachelorate degree in May. So this is going to be like the school year where we don't move. I've got the entire school year here in our tiny apartment. It probably wouldn't feel tiny to you, okay? Because I'm assuming most people watching this do not have as many kids as I do. I would love to get to know some more large families. So, let me know if that's you. So this part of the how I came to this new name for our family involves the fact that we do live in this apartment. We lived in this floor plan before when we had 4 kids, and then like we already had the first two sets of twins when we moved here, and then we had the third set of twins while we lived here, but they were so much smaller then. They didn't take up as much space. Now that everyone's older, it definitely feels so much more cramped, and we're still super thankful to be able to be here, to be able to do what we're doing here. This idea of Pocket Full of Chaos came to me for one reason, the idea that I feel like we're living in somebody's pocket. And the other thing is this little sign back here. Okay, if you can't read it, it says, some call it family. I read it the wrong way every single time. It says, some call it chaos, we call it family. So I'm going to give you a little backstory on that. 2 or 3 moves ago, when we were living out in the country, Joshua picked this up at, I believe, Tractor Supply. And he brought it home, and he thought I would love it. And he was going through this thing where he was just embracing this idea of our family being so chaotic, and he just thought it was so fun and cute. And I was against it. Okay. I was in denial, like, I don't know how to put this. He wanted to call our family chaos with like this positive connotation to it, from his point of view. I didn't see the idea of chaos the same way he did. Because obviously chaos is chaos, right? That's disorder. And I had this mindset of, why would you celebrate chaos or like be proud to be chaotic when we serve a God of order? And he's the opposite of chaos. It was like a spiritual thing. I was like, I just cannot support this idea. Like, and I wanted to, I don't know, organize and order my family and make it the way I thought God intended us to be. And obviously I still want that. As a mother, you do want to teach your kids. I'm accepting, not that we are chaos, but I'm accepting that I guess maybe it really is as hard as it really is. Not that I've always known that. It's just that I'm accepting that I can't unchaos us. We are the way that God made us. And so recently, Joshua was diagnosed with autism level 1. And that just totally flipped everything. Like it just, in a way, it's kind of like, oh, that makes sense. But in a way, it's like, oh, that makes sense. Like there's been so many things that I thought that I could change about him and about our kids. Like if I just kept on doing this and kept on doing that, that I could just like make our family less chaotic. And getting this diagnosis, not that we're not going to keep striving to be, everyone's always like, Christians are always convicted on a daily basis to be more like Christ. Like that's, but at the same time, you don't reach that. Like you just got to accept that you can't reach that here on earth. It won't be until, this life down here is over and we're in the glory of God that we, well, there won't be any autism or ADHD, which I know that's not like, I guess the typical person is not dealing with that. Like, but everybody's got something. Everybody's got something. And this is our something. This is our something. So I already believed that I had ADHD for a long time. It was probably after high school that I really started thinking about it. I may have started feeling that way in high school. I definitely started trying to help myself in like my later high school years, because my freshman high school year, I was like so depressed. It was awful. Part of it, the second half was better, because I started changing, like accommodating myself. It's so weird because now I know words like accommodation that I didn't know. I didn't know that word before. Never thought about an accommodation, but I definitely started accommodating myself somewhere around high school or college-ish. I started thinking that I have ADHD, which was crazy to think because I've never been like a hyperactive person. Since getting this diagnosis for autism, which I suspected, like I kind of pushed towards this evaluation because we got to a point, because we've moved so many times and like we've just like gone here and there and did this and did that, chased different things, and it was getting exhausting. Okay, it was getting exhausting, and I was making, time's ticking, and I was starting to feel a little defeated over it and wondering if I was crazy. There's times I think I'm crazy, or that I've made wrong life choices or something. Like did I go wrong somewhere? But with the kids getting older, they can't be tossed around like this, and like everybody has a right to share their concerns. That's cool. I can assure everyone, that being grounded and rooted in Jesus and raising your family in however many churches God brings you to over the course of time, it certainly makes a difference. And I know that they are rock solid firm in that. Okay. And I will get around to what I mean by that. I felt like just kind of pushed up against this wall, and I was like, okay, something's got to give. We got to figure out what's going on here and why this pattern is going on. And I was like, I'm feeling like there's one of two things going on here, and one of them was autism. One of my suspicions. Don't even care to go into the other one because this one was confirmed. So that's good enough for me. And he started researching this, and there would be things that he would read or watch where he was like, that was kind of my experience growing up. And so he started thinking the same thing, or suspecting the same thing. So once we moved where we are now to, because this recurring theme kept coming up that he had to finish this degree. Like he started it and he had to finish it. And So that's what we're doing now. Like, me and the kids are here. Um, he has a great job here, and we're well supported, and also we'll be here until May for him to get his degree. And like, that was something we knew we were going to do. But as far as anything else, like, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, we just know we got to finish this. We got to finish this part of our life, and then that will be behind us, and we can just, God will tell us what's next. So while being here, this idea of autism just kept nagging and nagging and nagging, and is that, it's like, is that who I am? And so he scheduled, or like signed up for this free evaluation, which that takes over a year, or close to a year, or over a year to get into. And like, that was just gonna take too long or whatever. So his parents helped him get in with the proper people. He was evaluated over a course of time. They took, information that I gave him as his wife, his parents, and things that he experienced growing up. I guess that's it, just me and his parents. Because I can give an account for how he is as an adult, in his daily life, and they could give the account of what it was like raising him, and struggles that he had and stuff. And so that was the outcome, was that he was diagnosed with level 1 autism. He was already previously diagnosed with ADHD, so he has both. And when we got this diagnosis, well, I mean, first of all, I just had to like sit back and go, this is big news. And it's like, it's good to finally know. Like, it's so relieving to finally know. Anyone who knows him knows he's been trying to figure out who he is his whole life. For me, as a person with, well, I'm totally self-diagnosed on all accounts. I don't have anything clinical going on here. I just studied, and I just kind of assume, because I know this brain in here, it ain't all, it's not typical by any means. So anyway, when I met him and he was trying to discover who he was, like, it was cool, we were always going on adventures, doing new things. And that was exciting, because when you have ADHD, that's a fun thing to do. Like, that keeps, it's a thing. Okay. We like adventure. We like new things, novelty. But when you have a family, it kind of gets, not that it gets old, you still want adventure, but it's just that it becomes harder to do those things. So something had to give, and so this was the answer. This was the identity that I went through this thing where I was like, well, you have your identity in Jesus, so what else do you want? But, and that's true. Like, but this was a huge part of his identity that was existing his whole life, and he was completely oblivious to it, because like, the info just wasn't there. So we found that out, and that was like, it was scary, because then you have to acknowledge that there's some things that you got to do differently in your home life. And I am going to get into like how that's going to affect homeschool, because it is. We're definitely doing things differently to be better with our kids, because with his diagnosis also came an awareness of things that we suspected in the past with our kids. So of the 7, I suspect, and eventually we'll probably get them evaluated. It's just Joshua having a diagnosis is enough for me to kind of make an assumption here. So my assumption is that at least 5 of the 7, possibly 6, possibly all 7, I don't know, but at least 5, I'm very certain, have a level of autism. They're somewhere on the spectrum. And some things that happened early on in their childhood that that made me suspect that you now see everywhere that are early signs of autism, like the little hand flapping, which is super adorable. Like in when you're not suspecting that, it's just something super adorable your kid does. Like you don't. It was in the back of my mind, though. It was there. And when they just kind of kept meeting milestones and getting into the school, and I was like, oh no, but it's just been lingering there in the back of my mind, not just because of the hand flapping. That's just a thing that I definitely recall that I'm throwing out there right now. Also, in their education, first off, I'm super happy that God called me to this, that I listened, and I did know that God definitely called us to this, because I could not imagine trying to go through the public school system with at least 5 of my 7 children needing accommodations. I mean, I know that people struggle with, IEPs and stuff, and I know there's places that are great, but I can't imagine anything greater than me as their mother seeing it firsthand, and just doing all this at home with them and moving at their pace and accommodating them with what they need. Like there's not a I'm so grateful to God that even though we've never been wealthy by any stretch, um, I've been able to stay home with them. I know a lot of people have to, have 2 incomes, and we've just adjusted. We just pretty much, I mean, God has allowed us to be able to adjust our expenses according to what He gives us as an income. And I'm super grateful for that. There are definitely things in our homeschool we are going to be doing differently. First off, like I noticed over this summer, I guess, started like churning in my mind that I've gotten off course with my like why for homeschooling. And it was totally to make sure that my kids were getting a Christ-centered biblical worldview education, and teaching them God's word in the beginning was the absolute priority. When I started teaching my oldest 2, they were just 2 years old. And the only thing not the only thing I was teaching them, but the main thing I was teaching them was Bible stories. I remember it was so cute and it was so fun. I would teach them like about Moses, and we would act it, like I would read it and we would act it out. I've got so many recordings of them memorizing Bible verses from age like 3 and 4. We're so little and it was so precious. It's still precious now. Like it's just I've watched them go from that to, making a profession of faith and being baptized. And now my oldest 2 are starting 7th grade. But we've gone through all the things that we've gone through, and year after year, because of all the moving, we've had to so many times kind of pack up school and just do the like important things, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and those things are great. And that's still a heavy focus, but I have scaled back on the pressure to like succeed there. Like they're super successful anyway, and I don't have to worry about it. That just wasn't what I intended to be the focal point. My kids are going to meet any standard that they will need to meet to go into whatever future God has for them, whether it be college or career or mission or whatever God calls them to do. They're gonna be prepared for it. But they can't be prepared for any of those things if I'm not grounding them in their purpose here. If I'm not grounding them in having a relationship with their Savior, and like how to do that. So like that's my priority. Like I will drop all the rest of it if it continues to get in the way of me teaching them the most important things. Okay. So our theme this year is, what was I made for? It's not reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those things are very valuable, but we're exploring, God's call on their life. They've all made a profession of, well, all of my kids except the youngest have made a profession of faith and been baptized. They are born again believers. They've been baptized, believers baptism. Magnolia actually recently got rebaptized because since she's been in this church home, she actually questioned whether she, really understood what it meant when she was baptized before. I wasn't surprised for this to happen because I remember continuously questioning her, like, are you sure? But on her own, she came forward and she was like, I didn't really understand what it meant then, but I definitely do now. And I definitely want to make Jesus the Lord of my life. I definitely want to be baptized again because I'm sure about this now. So these older 4 kids, I'm really going to be focusing with them. Like, I'm going to be having intense, like, deep discussion Bible studies with them first thing in the morning. And my younger kids have their own little reading Bible story. My youngest can read, and so they're going to be reading their Bible story together, like kind of popcorn reading to each other, so that I'm, able to focus with these older kids and start getting ready for their futures. And it's going to be, what was I made for, in a sense of, like, literally, what am I as a human being created for? Maybe the first semester will be what was I made for, and then the next semester will kind of lead into what it's like to wait upon the Lord, right? So there's some specific things that I'm changing about how we go day to day with our schedule, just expectations that I have for the kids. I've changed my perspective, considering that they very likely do have autism, and the ones, if okay, so we've got autism and ADHD, and if they don't have autism, they still probably do have ADHD. So let's do the numbers here. That is 9 whole humans living in one 4-bedroom apartment, not spacious bedrooms by any means. I was afraid that our huge family sofa that we just purchased was even going to fit in the living room. Okay, that's how tiny of a pocket of a space we're living in, which is fine. I am not saying that to say that I'm ungrateful. I'm just saying that's how it feels. Okay, I complain about it, but that's just me being realistic about our life, because it is. While I'm still grateful about it, I don't want to just kind of pretend that it's not what it is. I want to go into more detail about things that I'll do differently as far as workspaces, expectations, and accommodations. I do want to finally talk about my scheduling system that I made that whole video about that time, which was previous to finding out about the fact that we have autism in our family. But yeah, back to us doing the numbers here. We've got 9 people in this home, several animals. We are animal people, okay? And it makes so much more sense now, because if you know someone with autism, you probably are aware of how close to nature we tend to be, okay? And I say we because, it's kind of on my mind that there's a possibility I could have it too. I don't know, when I sit and think about my childhood, like, hey, that's not a far off idea. I was super socially awkward. I am not like saying I definitely have this. I'm saying it's on my radar, okay? I now have a better understanding of my husband's identity, right? And how he relates to the world. And in turn, that helps me to have a better idea of how to parent my children. It makes me able to better support them, better accommodate them, help them understand themselves. They're starting to get to the age where they're going to start noticing that they're different from people, or they're going to start noticing there's certain people that they kind of relate to more, right? But there's a lot of people out here fall under this umbrella that really don't have a clue, and they've kind of been struggling through life like Joshua was, and still continues to. But I can tell you it's definitely so much easier. It's kind of like how, everyone goes through suffering in life. When you're suffering with the hope of Jesus and the hope of an eternal future in God's glory, this earthly suffering seems so much easier, right? Or not necessarily easier, just it's easier to accept it, having that hope, right? It's easier to live at peace and to have joy through suffering because of your hope and your faith. He was already suffering, being a late diagnosed person. Maybe this is you, I don't know. Being a late diagnosed person, you are who you are anyway, whether you're diagnosed or not, right? Knowing that this is who you are, first of all, it makes you like kind of cut yourself a break and not be so hard on yourself. It releases a lot of burden to perform or mask or try to fit in with the world, because it makes sense now why you're different. So you're like accepting of it. And like that takes a lot of stress off a person's shoulder. Like I made that connection because I remember a very difficult thing that my family was going through when I was going like actively in church for the first time as a child and going to summer camp. And that's where Jesus pursued me. Like he led me there, and that's where I met him. And we didn't stop going through a hard time because I met Jesus, but becoming aware of his presence and having him, holding me through it. I remember it becoming just more peaceful to live through the things that were going on in my home life. Like I look back on my childhood and it's happy. I was fulfilled. I lacked nothing. And it's not because of any material thing or anything that society thinks a child needs to have. It's because I had my Savior. Okay? That was all I needed. Not that I was like, let's just say that before Jesus, I was lacking Jesus, okay, and then I had him and I was lacking nothing, okay. And becoming aware of that was so amazing. That transition, okay, it's like an ongoing life, eternal life that started there when I was 9 years old, never stopped, okay. I am relating that getting this diagnosis is similar to, gaining eternal life, in that finding your identity it brings you so much peace. I can just say that getting this diagnosis changed our perspective. Like it's brought us to a point that we can focus more on growing in our faith and seeking God's will for our life, where before it was just trying to figure out who we are, that's a huge distraction, right? Like, I mean, it's like Satan's got this thing looming over your head, like, oh, you don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. Well, guess what? Now we do. So you don't have that on us anymore. Praise Jesus. So I really questioned my ability to even be a mother several times over the last couple years, because I did not realize why it was so hard. I know that there's other women out here with large families, homeschooling with large families. And why does it just not appear? And maybe it could be fake, okay? Maybe it could be just be public appearances. Why does it not appear like they're struggling as much as I am? Why? Okay, so it makes a lot more sense now why our life feels so chaotic, okay? This is a big family of people who have been just waking up day after day, triggering each other, causing each other to have meltdowns because we weren't aware of the truth. And now we have that truth, and we were able to take that truth and change our future with it. And I'm going to have to make a whole separate video about the accommodations that I'm adding to our daily lives regarding homeschool and regarding just daily lives in general. Because when you know better, you do better. Okay. I've made mistakes in the past because I didn't know this thing. I didn't know. Every time I tried, it just felt like more was mounted against me, and I was just constantly unsuccessful in doing better as a mother and for my family. Like I was too exhausted. I was too stressed. We were trying to live a life as typical people, even though not a single one of us in this family are typical people. And I really hope you understand what I mean by that. There are certain things our brains are either not capable of, and it's just not going to happen. Close that door. Don't even think about it. And there are certain things that are just going to take us longer to learn how to do. Okay. So I look forward to sharing with you the accommodations. That's such a cool word. I love that word. The accommodations that I'm making for myself as a mother to be more successful, raising this army for Christ that God has given us, that we prayed for and that we have. This little chaotic jumble of joy that we have. It's work, but it is glorious work, and I am embracing it, and embracing it is making such a huge change in my life because all that time I spent denying it was not worth it. It was a waste of my time. So here we are embracing who we are and loving us as people made in God's image who have made a profession of faith to follow him and obey him. And that's going to be so much, it's going to make a lot more sense to actually do this if we acknowledge who we are in him. Okay. So that's what we're going to do. And I will get back to you ASAP with those changes that we're making to our lives and our homeschool. I hope you stick around to hear about it. Love you, people. I'll be back.